this lighting is very yellow and I'm chasing daylight, so we're gonna try to get this done as quickly as possible. In this video, we're going to talk about some of the inspiration and research I had to do in order to get Himeko's story running. But again, if you're new to the channel, my name is Anne-Karine Quinn, and I am an aspiring self-published indie author who hopes to have her debut contemporary adult bodyguard romance novel coming out in tentative date November 2024. Crossing fingers. Again, like I said, the story, right now I'm just calling it Himeko story. I'm not actually revealing the title yet. But it is a bodyguard romance story. It is about a woman named Himeko Zhao. She is the daughter of a successful man who is in the Chinese triad out in LA. And unfortunately, her brother dies. And as a response to that, her father decides that he needs to protect his children. So he hires some private bodyguards for his two remaining children. And the one assigned to Himeko, his name is Keiko Amasa. He is tall, dark, handsome, little cocky, totally funny, and just quintessentially the man that dreams are made of. Does that make sense? Anyway, but as time goes on, so does their connection to each other. And you know, there's something happens between them. But then also at the same time, she has to deal with possibly, you know, someone else trying to kill her and the rest of her family. So, a lot of romance, a little bit of mystery, some spice. So yeah, if that sounds like up your alley, go ahead, follow my channel, and you'll find updates on the story. I'll go over things like not only just today, like inspiration and research, but like things about the character development, story development, and then eventually, hopefully, an announcement before the end of 2024 of when the book will be released. So inspiration for Himeko's story definitely came from a show called The Royals. Here in the United States, it was on the E! Network. It starred Elizabeth Hurley. Oh my gosh, the guy who was the blonde kid in Narnia. Sorry, I don't remember his name. Mosley? William Mosley? Anyway, the story was actually based on Hamlet. So, the king dies, and their older brother dies, allegedly. That's a plot twist later in the series. But in the show The Royals, the father is dead, and they're trying to find out who was responsible. That was the first season, and then after that, there's like other stuff that was happening. One of the sub-storylines was Princess Eleanor. She fell, or she had this really kind of toxic relationship with her bodyguard that actually developed into something, you know, really sweet and really actually legitimate over time. The show was on for like 3 seasons before it got canceled, unfortunately. Okay, let's face it, bodyguard romance stories, I mean, they've been around forever. I mean, obviously the one I can think of the most is The Bodyguard, with Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner. The bodyguard and, you know, I guess rich person, or, you know, rich woman, princess, whatever, that dynamic is not new, but we love it, and I love it. I was a fan, and I was like, what can I do for this story? On top of that, the other things that I kind of just absorbed that I really liked was, that kind of helped with inspiration, was like these really Asian-driven storylines like Tokyo Vice and Warrior. Warrior, if you don't know, it was a show that was on Max, I think. Now it's on Netflix. Another canceled. Wonderful show that got canceled. However, this took place in like the 1850s, around like just after the gold rush in San Francisco. a man shows up. His name is Assam, I think. He shows up in San Francisco trying to find his sister. And then with that mission, somehow he gets entangled in the Tong, which are basically local Chinese organized crime organizations in Chinatown. And the Tong and the triads are related. There are a couple differences. And the other show that was kind of inspiration to it was Tokyo Vice. That was another show, I want to say on Paramount or something. Stars Ansel Agot. Oh my god, I'm so sorry, I don't know his name. Ansel Agot and Ken Watanabe. So the show revolves around a news reporter who's a young American news reporter that is in Tokyo, and he is trying to cover the story about these suspicious deaths that's happening across town, and somehow he gets tangled up in the Japanese Yakuza, the Japanese organized crime out there. So those were the kind of media that I was absorbing when it came to starting to write this story. Mostly the Royals, and then after that was Warrior and Tokyo Vice. Now in the Royals, so the characters are Princess Eleanor and Jasper Frost. He was the bodyguard. So during the toxic during the toxic times, as it were, during the toxic times, he would refer to her as princess, and she would refer to him as bodyguard. In the very early stages of their time together. And I don't know why, when I was trying to brainstorm this, I kind of wanted her name to actually mean princess, and that's actually what Himeko's name means. Hime in Japanese is princess, and ko is the word for child. So that's where her name came from. And I think later I'm gonna go more into depth about names and characterizations and all that stuff probably in another video. And another inspiration is a good old Romeo and Juliet story. So again, the fact is the show The Royals was inspired by Hamlet. So this was a little more in terms of Romeo and Juliet, and it shows a little bit more later in my story, just about two people who technically shouldn't be together. Hence that little forbidden romance factor, little forbidden romance trope that's in my story. And actually I kind of pay homage to that in a way. In the front matter of my book, I have a quote from Romeo and Juliet. It is from Act 2, the prologue of Act 2, actually. I'm pulling it up here right now, that's why I'm kind of just staring at my screen. It's just it's maybe 5 or 6 lines. So Act 2 prologue at the very end, I'll just read it. It says, let's see. Being held a foe, he may not have access to breathe such vows as lovers used to swear. And she as much in love, her means much less. To meet her new beloved anywhere. But passion lends them power, time means to meet, tempering extremities with extreme sweet. So, good old classic Shakespeare iambic pentameter. What it means, basically, is that because Romeo and Juliet, they're enemies, he doesn't really have an opportunity to tell her how he feels about her. Because by the time this happens in the play, they've already met at the party and they're just I'm totally into you. However, then they find out from, their respective, friends, and I think, Romeo's friend, I think, tells him, and then I know definitely Juliet's nurse, maid or whatever, tells her that the one she's been flirting with all night is Romeo, and he's a Montague, and he's off limits. And she's like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? And then Romeo, he's just why is she hanging out with her? Oh my gosh, that's the Capulet family. Oh crap, she's a Capulet. Oh crap, she is technically supposed to be an enemy. Oops. But anyway, the prologue basically talks about how because they are considered enemies, they can't really proclaim their feelings for each other. And, it also talks about how, but they're really passionate for each other, and therefore hell-bent to see each other and meet and talk. That whole idea of, the more difficult this scenario is, the sweeter the triumph will be when they finally get to see each other again. So that's kind of where that little spiel is from. And honestly, I couldn't use the prologue from the very beginning when it talks about, two houses, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona where we lay our scene. And then it talks about also how these pair of star-crossed lovers take their life. Just so you know, there's no taking of their own lives in my story. So therefore, the first prologue didn't make sense to put in my book. So I kind of just pulled something where it made more sense about how they wanted to be together and they couldn't exactly communicate it. So that's what I started with. Now, later, throughout the book, actually, the chapter titles are quotes from Romeo and Juliet. Like the very first chapter, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. That was the very first chapter when you find out that her eldest brother Ichiro has been murdered. Another chapter is called Give Me My Sin Again. That refers to the first time that Romeo and Juliet they kiss at the party, and that alludes to what happens in the chapters. Every chapter title, I had to read Romeo and Juliet. The last time I read Romeo and Juliet was almost 3 years ago. I just read it at leisure. I had to read Romeo and Juliet 8 times in a whole week just to so I could pull lines that kind of alluded or made sense to what actually happened in the chapter. I probably shouldn't have done that. It probably made things harder for myself that way. I could have just not named the chapter something Romeo and Juliet-esque, but I kind of wanted to. So when it came to the research for this story, again, it was basically reading Romeo and Juliet a million times. It was 8, but a million times in order to get the chapter titles in. But in terms of the world building, that was relatively easy. I went to Southern California a lot, LA, a lot of times in San Diego. So it was a little easier. I knew the neighborhoods relatively. I do have family out there in the LA area, so when I was texting them, I was like, what kind of neighborhood would you find this? And what neighborhood would you find this kind of thing? But a lot of the places I hung out a lot was in an LA area, was kind of this touristy spots, of course, Santa Monica, Universal, but also I spent a lot of time in Encino. I had a doctor out there a couple times, and then of course the airport area, Hollywood, yeah, did I say Hollywood, West Hollywood, Beverly Hills, Culver City area, yeah. So I did go out there a lot, and I just love Southern California, and I wanted to write something there. It turns out that as of now, I have written Himeko story, Hiko story, and another one that is kind of still kind of in the works. So 3 stories, all taking place in the LA area. So yeah, I just love the area, and I love the Southern California area. So I wanted to write something that took place there. Now, as for the organized crime, I know there's a lot of more robust information about the Italian mafia, and that's more easily accessible to me. It's actually the point where I can just run into it. I can run into stuff that happened from the Italian mafia, and the Russian mafia, not so much. But embarrassingly enough, the only exposure I had to the Chinese triad in terms of media was like the movie Rush Hour, like the one with Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker, like the very first one. Again, I'm a millennial kid. Like that movie I saw a lot of. But what I wanted to do is I needed to expand it out. Like I needed to like, okay, that's, you know, that's Western media's idea of what the triads are. I need to kind of see what's going on and what else is there. So I had to do a lot of YouTube research because there's a lot of great documentaries on the Chinese triads and the Tong, and then also like the Japanese Yakuza. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube that of course it's on YouTube. There's a lot of stuff there that did help in terms of not just world building, but like it talked about the different disciplines and like the social expectations and the mentality of the members. So what happens in the story in terms of like the business perspectives is what I highlighted. Now I couldn't really get much into it because one of the things about Himeko, and again, I'll probably go more into this in the character development like video, but when it comes to Himeko, she was never in the thick of it, in terms of in the thick of her dad's businesses or her dad's business practices. She's his daughter. She's tried her best to do her own thing. So I needed enough knowledge to at least, as if she was like an outsider looking in, but I didn't need to go in depth with it because she is not running the business. So it was just enough, again, to like get my feet wet, just to kind of see what the culture is, how she would probably grow up, like how Himeko would balance living in, you know, under normal society circumstances, but then like there's this whole underground society happening. And the last research part that I did was Kauai. So Kei Kawamasa, he is our leading male character. He is half Japanese, half Hawaiian, and he was born and raised in Kapa'a, a town, I guess is a town or some sort of, it's just north of Lihue, on the island of Kauai. So it was actually between two islands for him to grow up in. It was either Big Island or it was Kauai. Now, when I was doing more research and I was asking around, Kauai is actually a little more local compared to the Big Island, apparently, in terms of like the amount of tourists. I think there's actually more tourists, of course, coming into Honolulu and Oahu, the main island where the capital is. And then Maui, Big Island, those also have a lot of access for tourists. I think Kauai, not so much. It really is small town, and I wanted something that really is like the equivalent of like coming from the mainland. Like, I grew up in a small town, you know, everyone knows everybody kind of mentality. Like, you see those in Hallmark movies. I wanted that, but equivalent to Hawaii. When I actually stepped foot in Kauai, I actually went with my sisters. I was supposed to go with my husband, but then he's just like, no, I'll take care of the kids, go have a sister trip. And then like I called them and I was like, hey, I need someone to go to Hawaii with, like, specifically Lihue. I don't want to go alone. And they're just like, I'm gonna pack my bags, let's do this. And it was great. But what happened was, one of the things about it was when I wrote the story, like, he is from there. Keikoa is from there, but I've never been there. If he was from Honolulu, it would have been easier because I've been there enough times that I can kind of get an idea of the city. But again, Kauai was a completely new island. I didn't know what it was like. And then the moment I got there, it felt so different compared to the hustle of Honolulu. And the reason why it was so important for me to go there is because the people are different there, and not in a bad way. It's just that their way of life and the way that they talk, the way that they carry themselves, it's all different. Now, Kay, his shorter version is named Kay. He does leave the island when he is roughly 18 or 20 or something 18. He goes to Honolulu eventually for work, and he's only there for about 2 years before he goes to before he leaves the island. And he still has little bits here and there. Now, the one thing that I did really have a hard time with is the accent they have there. There's a specific accent out in parts of Hawaii known as like a pigeon accent. If you're ever wondering what it sounds like, I guess the best place to hear it is the easiest place to hear it really is if you watch Lilo and Stitch and you hear David, Nani's, love interest. When you hear him speak, he has what you kind of would call a pigeon accent. And I couldn't capture that because I didn't really hear it a lot. I actually had an editor who was reading the final drafts of my first draft of the story, and she was around a couple of people from Lihue or from Kauai. So she would edit a lot of the lines to sound a little more simplistic, a little more like she would probably put like a little slang word that they use here and there because she heard it from her classmates. So that helped a lot. So if you ever read the story and you're just like, why is he saying that? Or that doesn't, why would they say that? It's because most likely it's because I tried to put in like little accent or colloquial phrases here and there that hopefully is genuine to the locals out there in Kauai. So in terms of updates, the editing is done. So that means the betas, the developmental, the line copy syntax edits, and the initial proofreads, they are all done. So my editors came back to me. They did request a bunch of stuff that I need to rewrite just to make things more clear. So I did that. I did write that out. But then we also agreed, and we got back together, that we needed to just let it sit and marinate and like let it just breathe for a bit. And then we're going to come back to it in like, I would say, let's see, today is July 20th. So probably by next week, because we gave ourselves a couple of weeks off on it, we're gonna go back to it and like reread the bits, like reread the stuff that I had to rewrite. There's a couple of things that of course they don't really need to look over, like they said you need to put a comma here, I put a comma there, done. But like definitely the stuff that needs to be rewritten or things that they're like, you need to explain this more, that's gonna have to be looked at again. But because I can't help myself and I'm really impatient, I asked my husband to get the template I have from like DIY formatting. And I said, I need this, here's a story. Please put the margins in correctly. Please put the page breaks in correctly. And he formatted the book in the Word document. So, the page numbers are correct, the headers are correct, all the front and back matter are in the book, that they're all numbered correctly and things like that, or actually not numbered because I asked him not to put page numbers on the front and back matter, only just on the story body. Oh, and the cover. So I hired a cover designer a couple months ago, and by then I was already halfway into Hiko's story. So just so you guys know, this book, Himeko story, is book 1 of the duology. It's the Zhaotun duology because Himeko's story is book 1. Her twin, Hiko, is the star of book 2. So when I hired the cover designer, I basically kind of preemptively told her, like, I need this cover for not only this first story, but I'm also releasing a duology, and therefore I'm gonna hire you for the second book, just so we're clear. But whatever decisions that we're making for this first book, it's going to be reflected into the second book. So it won't be identical, but it's like it's gonna have this, it's gonna play with each, like it's basically gonna like a callback to each other essentially. And she's like, yeah, totally into that. So what I had to do for her is she gave me like a statement of work about like exactly like deadlines, what we're gonna do, what everything costs, and in return, I gave her like different inspiration pictures. I even gave her like a bunch of stock images of like, if we go like with people on the cover, this is what I want. If we go with just like symbolisms on the cover, this is what I'm looking for. This is the kind of color scheme I like. So what she did for me is she drew out, just like hand drawn, 4 different designs. And then now what we did is I picked 2 of them. And then she actually took the information from like my book. So she actually had to read the book. Like she had to read the book so she can get inspiration on how to do these covers. So she read the book, and then she designed 4 covers. And then I picked 2 of them, my 2 favorites. And then she elaborated on those. So she did basically the front, the spine, and the back. So I also gave her the kind of fonts I want. I was like, but these are the kind of fonts I want. However, if you find something better that'll go more with the pictures that you're choosing, go for it. I don't care. I just want something that looks handwritten, or I want something that looks serif. So she's given me the 2 PDFs of the 2 designs that I chose. Now, one interesting design idea that came to mind, this is on her, and I really liked this idea because, again, she knew that she's going to not only be doing Himeko, she's also going to be doing Hiko's story as well. She wanted to play on the fact that Himeko, she has a very like cool ice blue, cool palette kind of energy compared to Hiko. In Hiko, he is much more like bright. In case you don't know, Hiko's name, I actually have it meaning like sun, like as in sun, like sunlight. It's just based on the kanji, the written characters that his name was based off of. So because of that, she was like, I was thinking a cool color palette for Himeko's book, and then for Hiko's book, it'll be like a warmer color palette, like in oranges or reds. And I was like, that is brilliant. I love that idea. Let's go with it. So this is the kind of like the trick when it comes to it right now, is that my designer, she knows that we want to share the themes of the book covers, but they're not going to look identical. So she's being very thoughtful about that, which is great. So I already picked so she gave me the 2 designs. I already picked which design I wanted. So now I've settled on a single cover design, like in the initial like image cover design. And then now all we're doing now is like, I'm just waiting for her to like fine tune and tweak everything, whether it's like playing with the colors, playing with font placement. There's a couple things I needed her to add, like the fact that it says Zhao Twin Duology. I needed that to be somewhere on the cover. And then also there's a tagline. I kind of wanted her to replace it somewhere else onto the top of like onto the front cover somewhere. But yeah, she's been really open about communicating, what she thinks would look good, what she thinks would work. So it has been very helpful, and that's where I am so far with the book cover. So right now it's also kind of like, I'm kind of in limbo. And I don't say in limbo, just also because I had the whole house had COVID, like, I don't know, like for 2 weeks. It's just like, it was just basically one person, then the next person, then the next person, then me. so I'm kind of behind, but I did start to like figure out my social media stuff. Like, I tried to figure out, okay, what kind of reels would I make? What kind of TikToks would I make? What kind of like other promos or publicity things I should do. So I was just like planning that out. I was playing with Canva a lot on the days where I couldn't concentrate because I was just like, you know, not being able to breathe out of my nose. I do have this YouTube. I do have an Instagram and a TikTok, both at Anne Quinn. I have not loaded anything on it yet except an icon for my face, which isn't my face. It's just like a random icon that I made on Canva. But it's just so you know, I haven't placed anything on it just because I'm not done with my social media schedule, because I'm trying to plan out like what I'm gonna post when. I'm trying to be consistent, and I actually have a planner because I for whatever reason I like writing things down. But so like I have this planner, and in it I have like an entire blitz of like social media schedule. Like if I make a book trailer, I will post it on the 8th of November, because again, my tentative date is like the week of Thanksgiving. And then like 3 times a week, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm gonna post like a little book excerpt, or, you know, some sort of small short form YouTube video, or like, sorry, it would be a social media video that I could hopefully cross not only on TikTok but also on Insta Reels, and then also like on YouTube Shorts. Just basically like 3 in 1 go. I'm not exactly sure how this works. I've only really used Instagram. TikTok is very new to me, so that's also a thing I'm trying to learn as well. But yeah, like my entire plan is in here for Himeko's release. Maybe this will also be shared with Hiko's release too. I'm not sure, because I am only on like chapter 25 of Hiko's story, so I'm anticipating like 34 chapters, so we'll see. Anyway, that's all I got in terms of update for Himeko's story, and also like a little inspiration research behind the scenes. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm hoping to do a little bit more as we move the months along. Maybe like, again, some character development, some more world development, some story development, and some things I ran into when it comes to publishing this story. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. Thumbs up if you liked the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you next time. Bye.